Yeah. So what about pass-through, I hear you say? Well, yeah. We've been personally involved with pass-through since 2006. It was a great hope when it was released for the aftermarket. Came from America into the UK, and it was the big buzzword at the time. You know, was J2534 pass-through. Answer to all our prayers. However, actually, it's been quite a big letdown, as it's been influenced by the vehicle manufacturer's security policies. And the issue and the problem is that with pass-through, different vehicle manufacturers have treated this and viewed this slightly differently. So some manufacturers will give you the basic bare minimum of J2534 functionality, which is really just for software updating of existing modules. Other manufacturers have really embraced it and taken it that step further, and more or less turned it into a cheaper version of a dealer diagnostic tool. And they've seen that there's an opportunity for the OEMs to make money out of providing this service. So again, speed of programming, originally it's down on the OEM tool. It's generally not as quick. And again, you're paying by the hour or day or week or month to run them long term. So again, cost effective. It's very good at that. You know, it helps you budget, helps you pass that cost on to your customer. So you still pay to use the tool, but it's strictly controlled by the vehicle manufacturers. You know, you've got to go through all the security application processes and all of the hoops that that you'd need to jump through to make sure that you get unlock the ability to unlock the full functionality. So yeah, doesn't cover pre-Euro 5 vehicles, which I've just mentioned earlier. So typically it'll go back to, most of them will go back to roughly about 2009, 2010. You know, and again, older than that, and that again can be quite frustrating when you have a vehicle and you think it's on the cusp of being able to work with J2534, but you plug it in and the capability is not there. You know, so it can be quite frustrating, not knowing that kind of cut-off, as it's centered around the Euro 5 emissions rules rather than an exact year. So you do get caught out by, you know, I've got a 2010 vehicle, will it cover this with pass-through? Again, it's a little bit of a grey area. Some manufacturers will cover and some won't. And then of course there's the difficulties then on the newer vehicles, the DOIP protocol, the Diagnostics over Internet protocol. Again, another set of rules and regulations, and another method of communicating, a lot faster method of communicating. So maybe the solution, you know, you don't get them out and work on them all the time. You get the tools out from 1 week to the next, you know. So again, and as we've just alluded to, the manufacturers update their software quite frequently. So it's really quite important that these tools are at least being brought out into the workshop, plugged in, switched on with an internet connection, and given the ability to update these tools, so that you're always keeping your software up to date with the manufacturers, so that you can then update the vehicle with the latest information.
I think the bottom line with this, Dave, is that you go through all your registration process for pass-through and your security, and actually you're not really getting end-to-end coverage that you'd get if you just bought an OEM tool and use the same software, is what you're basically saying. So,
yeah,
you know,
it's the same registration process, your same application process of going through in the main for J2534 for pass-through as it is with a main dealer tool. So you're kind of going through the motions of your applications, only to then use a watered down version of their software.
Now, we've had many customers over the years after doing this for 12 years where they've started off with PT. We used to sell Cardac on the original sellers of Drewtech Cardac and stuff like that, and then after, you know, most of those customers now have gone to OEM tools because of the frustration, I guess.
Yeah, J2534 pass-through, it's a great stepping stone to using the dealer tool. It gets your feet wet, it gets your appetite wet, it shows you what is available in the tools outside of your aftermarket all makes tools. So it has got a place in the market. It's ideal for those workshops that have got multiple manufacturers entering their workshop on a daily basis, where to go out and buy genuine dealer tools in their 10 different vehicle manufacturers would be quite expensive. Pass-through does make that slightly more appealing in that respect, and as I say, it gets you on that little path and that stepping stone to using the OE tools, and you're familiar with them when you make that transition.
So I'm going to talk about a little bit of a tricky subject here, which is remote diagnostic tools and providers. And in case you don't really know what a remote diagnostic tool is, it's really a box that you plug in at the car end. You ring up a technician or you go onto a phone app, and they basically take over and they do a programming job for you. Now, Dave and I have been, again, involved with this from the very inception of these tools, but on the other hand, on my other hat, with the IAAF and looking at the rules and stuff like that, there are some issues surrounding these tools currently, and whether they'll be allowed to carry on is another question. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about these tools, really. So we've also found that they don't give you end-to-end programming functionality, and there's quite a few reasons behind that. I mean, a couple are to do with what we call rate, so timing, and timing from internet point to internet point, so they can't actually carry out those functions, because effectively you're getting an OE tool that's on the cloud to talk to another tool that's on the internet, to another tool that's on the internet at the other end, so it literally times out while you're trying to do it. So for example, if you wanted to program a BMW, you haven't got a chance with them really. There's quite a few things that they get around with this by writing their own what they call script files and pushing script files to do programming. The biggest problem is, and this is a big problem for me and this is a big problem for the IAAF, if the OEMs have their own way, remote diagnostics suppliers using OEM tools will be shut down for security violation, as they say, can't keep track of who's using the tools. Now, those of you who already have OEM tools, you know all about this. So you have to apply for security, and when you apply security, you have to do things like give your passport across, your mother's date of birth, you know, all sorts of stuff, so you can have your security access to do your key programming, etc. The VM terms and conditions state all of this, and this is likely to become a feature in the CERMI regulations. So I'll talk about the CERMI regulations and bits and pieces in a bit. Special agreements to be made under license with certain calibration functions with certain of these manufacturers. Manufacturers already shut down some operations and threaten court action with others. Many remote diagnostic tools are now using aftermarket tools to be more cost effective. Can't give you examples of those for legal reasons, but a lot of them are at the moment because they're being sniffed upon by the OEMs. The OEMs have got billions of pounds to play with, and these guys haven't. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to show you why this becomes prevalent on the next slide, actually. So this is from to one of our customers in December last year, and basically just what's highlighted is it's hard to explain this, but basically Mercedes have made us, or him, so it's a him, sign a contract here to use the software, and in the contract it says you must not use Entry Diagnostics, remote diagnostic software, and they threatened to shut him down because of this. Whether it's legal on the block exemption side in the IAAF and other parties, we don't really feel it is, but the fact is that he's had to sign those terms and conditions as a user to be able to use that software, and like any terms and conditions, if you break them, you can get screwed over for 25 grand, as it says at the top there. The point being is, if you rely on these remote diagnostic tools and they get shut down, there's going to be a big problem. And the other point about these is, from a purely business point of view, how much are they charging you to do a key, and how much could you actually get one done for if you did it yourself? I know a lot of you say, oh well, I'm not going to invest in OEM equipment or whatever, but it might be worth thinking about, because if these guys do get shut down, you're going to be left high and dry anyway.
Yeah, I think the key area there is, you know, it says this means that you must not resell, rent, or share, and sharing of your independently obtained user credentials. These user credentials are given to an individual. They are specific to you, not for a whole workshop. If there are 5 technicians in your workshop all wanting to carry out security related tasks on these vehicles, then all 5 technicians must have their own security accreditation procedures in place.